All right, so here I am to walk you through the pen boot camp exercises. As you can see right here already, I have my paper labeled in my sketchbook, Pen Boot Camp. I have the date, and then I have my artist's signature. Also, one thing you might notice is that I only have half of my paper. I drew a line right here. Pen and ink is a much smaller medium than charcoal, so I will not need as much space, and to cover large areas is just a lot more difficult, especially when you're going to use some of these fine line markers and pens. So when I talk about pen or technical pen, I'm talking about pens such as this, a Pitt pen from Faber-Castell. And these all have different sizes. They're marked, these ones happen to be marked with a letter, B, F, S, or M. Sometimes they just have a number like 0.08 or 0.1, and that will tell you the different size of the pens. But you can also do all of these techniques with a flare marker. A flare marker is just another fine line marker. However, this is not permanent. So these are a higher quality. The point on them lasts a lot more, and it has permanent ink in it. Now you can also use just a regular ballpoint pen, and this one is my favorite. It is a Bic Crystal pen, so we're going to be experimenting with all of these. So the first thing you're going to do with your ballpoint pen, just go ahead and label ballpoint pen. There are artists out there who only use ballpoint pen, and you can look at their artwork. They do some phenomenal work. What I want you to do with ballpoint pen is just to do some longer lines with pressure changes. So thick, thin, thick, thick, thin, thick, pressing harder, letting up. You might notice, I noticed on this pen, I don't know if you can see it, there's like a little goober on the end, so I'm going to kind of clean that off. Another thing you can try with this pressure change is just really quick strokes or marks. So that's a ballpoint pen. The next, I want you to repeat those processes with a flare. So this is a flare marker. Not permanent. Pressure changes. So you're trying to see the thickest and the thinnest line you can get with that marker. Again, let's do some like quick it's always important with the markers, these ones that have the permanent ink in it, and even this one, to make sure the cap's all the way on. All right, the last one I'm going to do is the Pitt. I'm just going to call it a Pitt pen. This is an M, so this is the thickest one. But you can certainly do this with any of the other ones. So right now you should be able to kind of compare the differences between those. And I'm just going to ask that you do a few more experiments with each one. So let's say, for instance, under my Pitt pen, I'm going to draw some curvy lines. So just, I would say, draw 3 more lines for each one of those. They can be the same 3 lines for each one. That might give you a better idea of the differences. I'm noticing right now the flare marker, I'm really able to get skinnier when I ease up on my pressure. So if I didn't have a bunch of different thicknesses of the Pitt pens, a flare marker might be a good choice because I could still get those thin lines and the thick lines. And then my ballpoint pen. So you do the lines that you want. You don't have to copy my lines. As you notice, the ballpoint pen has more of a silvery or a gray color to it, even though this is known as black ink. So from here, you are going to decide which pen you want to work with, and you can do the rest of the exercises with just one of those pens. It's really up to you. If you want to switch because you decided that wasn't a great idea, then you can switch. So like I said, I like this flare marker. I'm going to go ahead and do the next couple experiments with the flare. What you are going to do, this section is going to be called Patterns and Textures. You are going to make about 8 1-inch boxes in this area, and you are going to apply 8 different patterns or textures. So the sheet, for a reference, part of it is just next to me on the screen here that you can see, both in person and on your virtual screen. So for instance, I see there's kind of a cloud texture with these little dots in it. Notice how all of these patterns kind of run off the edge and get cut off. So do that also. There's a brick pattern. Now I don't want to choose the largest brick pattern there is. I want to be able to see what my pen can do in some of these smaller areas and more detailed items. If you are a detail person, you probably prefer a pen over the charcoal and maybe even graphite. So you're going to do 8 different patterns and textures. Then we're going to do that flat value scale, that famous flat value scale. So the flat value scale, I'm going to make 5 different values with the same pattern or texture. So 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's say I decide to do cross hatching. When I work in pen, because there's not a lot of room for error, I'm not able to erase, and I'm applying values, I like to start in an area that I know is going to be a medium value. So I'm going to be applying cross hatching in the number 3 value, which we kind of know already is that medium in between value. Now because, like charcoal and graphite, I can erase if I make a mistake, this is going to be more difficult. So you might need to do a second value scale underneath if this one doesn't work out. So I'm going to, when I work with line, the thing you want to think about, darker values, closer together, thicker lines. So I'm using a harder pressure here. I'm going to make my lines a little bit closer together. And then I'm also just adding more layers of this cross hatching. This is not going to be pitch black, but it is going to be like the darkest I can make this. Cross hatching is pretty tricky when you are trying to get those lighter values. You know, as always, you want to practice good craftsmanship, so purposely filling this box all the way up to the edge. All right, I have a pretty good value scale, I would say there, from dark to dark medium, medium. Now I'm going to be worried about this, so I'm going to really ease off my pressure, make the skinniest line I possibly can, and I'm placing those lines farther apart. So there I have my 4th value, and then you can leave that at white. So what I'm looking for that value scale is that it has even steps as it goes along. I'm using the same pattern or texture, one that you choose from right up there. Let's see, what's next? You have this big old giant area over here. So what I would like you to do in this area over here, this is going to be your free draw area. Free draw. So spend about, I would say, 45 to 30 minutes on a drawing that shows, what are we going to do? That shows treasure. So the idea of treasure, that means different things to different people. Treasure. Did I spell that right? I'm not sure. So what I do want you to think about is the composition and having 5 values. So whatever space you have, I want you to draw a box, and you are going to fill up this entire box with a drawing that you feel shows treasure. So that's pretty wide open. You're going to be using your pen techniques, so choose the pen that you want to use. I recommend drawing first in pencil, H pencil, very lightly to get an idea of what you want and where to place it, and to draw something that shows treasure, fills the whole space, so goes all the way up to the edges, and then has those 5 values. That is it. Enjoy.